Hello and welcome back, and today we're going to do something just a wee bit different. A number of you may have come to this video, let's be realistic, because of this bad boy right here, the Minisforum N5 Pro. And in fact, barely a day has gone by over the last 6 months without someone messaging me or commenting on one of the videos or articles about this device. What is it? How much is it? Is it vaporware? How can I get hold of it? Is it any good? And I'm going to be doing a whole week of testing. I've blocked an entire week out of my schedule just to focus on this device, and hopefully that review will be with you in about a week or so. But now I've got it here, I wanted to talk about the first impressions, because of this I've had in the studio for about a day at this point around other projects, and within that first day I've already found things that I like and dislike, and that's what this video is about. My first impressions, me and my phone full of notes, full of photos that I've taken throughout the course of this. I'm going to go through the things that even early doors I've liked and not liked about this device, just to give you a nice idea for now of what to expect. Now right now at the time of recording this, the official pricing for this is still not published. There is a page available online, you Google it, it immediately appears, and from there you can find out more information about the specifications. This unit that they've sent to me, they haven't paid for a review, they've got no influence over the review, they've just sent me the unit. Arrived with the unit inside a pretty little retail box. It's got the foam and packaging that's pretty well protected. It arrives with an enormous 280 watt external PSU. That's how they managed to get this scaled size chassis down like this. Alongside it, it also arrives with that U.2 adapter card there. I assume this is going to arrive for all users, but unfortunately I just can't confirm it. But there is the U.2 adapter card there that converts the 3 M.2s into a couple of U.2 drives and an additional M.2 drive there inside. Alongside that, you've got the screws, you've got the manuals. It also arrives with that eMMC module. One of the M.2s was populated with a 2230 SSD inside. It's got a 64 gig module that's got that OS on board. I've literally just started playing around with it, so I'm not going to include that in this video. I will say I'm a bit gutted that that 64 gig eMMC is populating one of the M.2s there. I was kind of hoping they could have found a way to factor that into the board without populating one of the M.2s. I don't know if that's a lane allocation thing or because they're using a similar internal MOBO to what we've seen on like the MS-01 or the MS-A2 more precisely. Again, there is that mini PC of theirs, that X1 Pro. I know that uses the same CPU as this. When I get a chance, I'll kind of look into both those motherboards and see if there's similarities there. But at least then that eMMC, as good as it's going to be for some users, having that OS drive, it's not separate from the M.2 from what I could see. So that's a bit of a kick in the pants for some. When it comes to the design of the chassis, I still love it. It's metal all the way on the outside there for dissipation. Again, the front panel is an absolute fingerprint magnet. They've done a good job with this. It's a little bit more transparent than I remember, but I will say it is definitely still a bit of a fingerprint magnet all the way around. There's a couple of screws at the bottom that keeps this tray in place, and just like the prototype we saw in China and we saw at CES, we got this lovely removable design there. Now, one of the things I was curious about is the similarity between that and obviously the pull-out trays. We'll cover this more in the review, but as you can see from the images on screen, they're very similar, but they're not identical there. Notwithstanding the kind of rotation that it's in there, this board is definitely larger, and the way it feeds in via a Gen 3x2 adapter here, and that adapter, by the way, is what's feeding the storage media into the board. So although you've got the 5 bays in there, you're still going to have 20 gigabit or 2 gigabytes per second transmission between those drives and there. So that is more than enough for 5 SATA, I would say, so there's not going to be any bottlenecks, even if you use 5 SATA SSDs. Also, while we're talking about first impressions, I like that all 3 of the M.2s, even with this fan assembly on top, have still got room for heat sinks on top of all of them. And that counted, by the way, whether you use that U.2 adapter card there, the cooling system there on the top. There was no added height because obviously space is at a premium here. The same goes at the bottom. You've got that 2-stage cooling system as well, dedicated to that CPU with copper piping inside. as well. And there's also a 16 times 16 PCIe. I've not had a chance to dip in to see if that's a physical 16, but a realistic times 8. It might well, thanks to that CPU, be a full times 16 support. And there's 2 SODIMMs there at the bottom. And this arrived with that ECC memory. That is genuine DDR5 ECC memory, Kingston, if you are interested. And when I did get the device that had the included 1 TB SSD, it is a Kingston SSD that it rocks out on there. So it isn't some moody SSD we've not heard of. For those that care, it is a PCIe Gen 4 SSD there. And again, we'll put an image on screen of the model ID. Drive installation was pretty darn smooth. Again, whether it was that I was installing SATA SSDs, the build I'm going for on this, by the way, is 2 SATA SSDs and 3 24 TB SSDs, hard drives, SSDs, madness. And they went in, click and load, nice and easy. Now the trays have no locking mechanism. They are springed, but there is no locking mechanism for those drives. Not the end of the world. It does feed onto a PCB at the back. All of them direct SATA input, unsurprising. SATA and power directly with that fan, or twin fans I should say, there on the rear. Now, one of the things that went back and forth with the brand, I'd say since CES, was confirmation of the ports and connections on this, as they were trying to play around, I imagine, with the number of lanes allocated on that CPU, that HX370 Ryzen 9 processor there. Again, 12-core, 24 threads to play with, but still nonetheless, there is a finite amount of resources for that allocation. And I'll say right now, it isn't 2 times 10G. There's a 10G and a 5G there. And I know that 5G is going to have mixed input from some users there, because 5G, if you're running a 10G setup, you're going to feel bottlenecked. And if you don't have a 10G setup, you've got 2.5G, you're still leaving it on the table. But still, I think it's better that they at least utilize that if they couldn't use 10G. Later on, when I go into the PCIe distribution, I'm going to be interested to see just what lanes they are on, to see if we are actually getting the full potential 15 gigabit connectivity there. Also, alongside USB 4 front and back, which they say their software is moving towards supporting for direct connection, and we did see evidence of that at Computex, by the way, along with ZFS support. There is also Oculink there as well. Now, we know there are Oculink external GPUs. We also know there are Oculink M.2 expansion devices. They only really have Oculink eGPUs. They've got their own eGPU and ePCIe for graphics cards as well. But how much of that you're going to be able to realize in their software, as in, via a VM GPU pass-through, just direct attaching, whether you can use their software or a third party, is still yet to be seen. Oh, and before I forget, even though they're rocking out their own OS with this, the Minisforum OS or Minis OS, they are still going to support Unraid, TrueNAS installations, Proxmox and more without it invalidating your hardware warranty. I know that seems a bit of a no-brainer, but you'd be amazed how many brands actually still lock you out on that. Now, when it comes to the PCIe speeds of the M.2s inside, 2 of them are PCIe Gen 4 times 1. So that's 20 gigabit or 2 gigabytes per second potential on 2 of those M.2s. However, another one there is a Gen 4 times 2. So that's 40 gigabit or 4 gigabytes per second. Realistically, you're not going to get that. You're going to get 3 to maybe 3.3 gigabytes per second, or 3,300 megabyte. Please don't show me the maths, and I know that isn't a direct transition for the maths there. But I will say 2 of them being 22110 length does open the door to say PLP, power loss protection SSDs there to be installed inside, or even some of the larger capacity ones that we're starting to see played with there. And carrying on, the Oculink port is also Gen 4, but it is Gen 4 times 4. So that's 80 gigabits or 8 gigabytes per second. Realistically, you're looking at around 7 and a bit thousand megabytes per second throughput there by your connected device. Again, that's going to be hugely dependent on what you're connected, but that's more than enough for the majority of modern Oculink GPUs. And for those considering Unraid or a bootloader, inside there is a USB 3 port as well to play with. Also, I'm going to say, even though I've had this up and running for only about 24 hours at this point, I'm still quite happy with what I'm seeing in terms of noise. It's way too early days to call it, but at least right now, I'm happy with what I'm seeing there in terms of the noise, with 3 enterprise-grade scaled hard drives inside and a couple of SATA SSDs and 3 M.2s inside. And although I'm not going to touch on this in the review, I will say we will, of course, be talking about how this device and this device compare in the near future. I've spoken to a few of you on Reddit, but I will say it is shaping up to be a banger comparison. And that's really it. This video is just about letting you know that testing has begun on this device, but I wanted to give you some of the first impressions of what I've seen. I still like the design. I've seen this a few times at different trade shows now, and they're pretty much delivering on everything we've seen, at least in terms of that hardware and design. But it's not all about that, is it? It's about the performance, it's about the software, and ultimately whether this is the right server for you. So I'm going to crack on back to work, but let me know in the comments what you want to see, because I'm going to be testing throughout the course of the next 7 days, and I'll try to include what I can. But thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you when the review's live.